One of the important things is being able to step back from youth leadership. We have been there to help them along, and now it's time for them to lead. Hey, ScouterStan. Let's talk a little bit about stepping back, not stepping away, but stepping back from the youth leadership. This was brought up by Relental. They want to know what they need to do this process, because it's complex, and you have to have that balance of safety and the balance within your unit. And that leader needs to be ready. Now, understanding the relationship between youth leadership and what we like to call adult leadership, that's usually for the scout facing, which would be scoutmasters and people that are dealing directly with youth leadership. We use the patrol method within the process of running a youth troop. Now, this is true with a crew also. So no matter what scouting part you're in, youth are meant to be leading the program. Now, this is slightly different when you're dealing with Cub Scouts. Cub Scouts has its own program that is implemented through adults. So that's a little bit different. So this is really for troops and crews and even ships where the youth are the leaders. Now, when youth are allowed to lead their unit, they get more out of it. They learn their leadership roles better, and they can implement things and problem solve on the fly. This is something that's critical. These are skills that are needed for the future. And these leaders become very independent, and you're there really to mentor, answer questions, coach, be there as a support. That's really where the adult leadership comes in. Now, there are signs that the youth are ready to take on leadership. They actually demonstrate the ability to think on their feet and to really start leading the group towards making those skills come alive. And when you have youth leadership that's actually there actively helping the unit, it is incredible the results that you can get. Inner activity and, of course, the ability to act on a plan and put things together in a logical order so that they can actually be executed towards the goal. This is something that is indicative to all leaders. They're able to move things forward. The youth leader will also have really good communication skills, can be able to convey complex things through very simple wording, and be able to communicate effectively to their peers. Now, when to step away? It's not stepping, you're stepping back. You're not stepping away. You're not disappearing. You're just behind them. You are listening and making notes on how to help that leader do those incredible leadership things that they have to do. So always keep that in mind. You're stepping back, not stepping away. Your responsibility is to help mentor, help coach that new youth leader and help them, go through that process. It is a learning process. I have always said that scouting is a safe place to fail, and that's true for leadership too. It is a structure where young people can lead a meeting and actually lead activities and without repercussions or problems. This is the beautiful thing about scouting, is that we give young people responsibility and help them become great leaders. That is really the goal in scouting, is creating these great leaders for tomorrow. We need this. It's important. Now, because we have not stepped away, we have only stepped to the back, we still observe safety. Safety is absolutely critical, and every scout and scouter knows that. It is absolutely the most important thing that we do is safety. Safety is the thing we talk about all the time. And leaders, young leaders, may do things or may say things or may lead into things that may be unsafe. And that's when you step out of from back and talk to the leader. Now, we have to do this respectfully, okay? It could be afterwards, after whatever happened, they can come and talk to that youth leader and remind them of safety regards. This is something that all young leaders need to learn. This is a skill that is very important. And that way, once they have been talked to, they can come back to the group without being embarrassed and re-talk about those safety concerns. So this is something that we talk about all the time with adult leaders. Because you didn't step away, it's important that you just step back, make notes, mentor, coach that young leader. That's the key. That's the key. And make sure that their respect is not compromised by interrupting and jumping in. And there's a time for that when it is actually happening. That's the important part. But if it's just leadership talking or going through instructions or something and not talking about the safety concern, that's when it needs to be brought up before the activity happens, so that is addressed. Now, for some scout leaders, they're going to encounter conflicts. It's inevitable. You have young people, you're going to have conflicts. And at that point, it's okay to kind of step in and coach and help that youth leader encounter those challenges. That's super important, to be there as backup. And that's really the role of the adult leader, whether it be a troop, a crew, or a ship. These are important things that the youth know that you've got their back. That's the important thing. And being that support is very important, especially with all kinds of possible conflicts. Now, we need to encourage problem solving. When those issues come up, when there is a problem that needs to be addressed, the adult leader needs to step back and observe what the youth is actually doing about those issues. And how they come to a solution is very important. And it's critical as adult leaders, because different management styles will handle different things differently. Obviously, this is something that comes up all the time. But as an adult leader, observing is very important on that process. This helps the youth understand that they are being mentored towards a leadership position. So when problems and difficulties and concerns come up, that they are addressed by the youth leadership. Now, as an adult leader, it is critical that you give constructive feedback. This is very important to the youth. They might have the impression that you're criticizing, that you are just objecting because you're not doing it. That may be something they're thinking. So you need to tell them in a diplomatic way that this is the reason we don't do that, and I would recommend doing this. It is so important that that feedback is flowing towards that youth so that they can actually use that and make sure that they adapt whatever's going on so that they can actually succeed. That's the critical thing. And as adult leaders, feedback is a gift. We say that all the time at Woodbatch because it's true. It is very true. So many times things will happen and there's no feedbacks. There's no comments. That's the problem here on YouTube. We have comments on every single video. Every video has a comment section. And it's important. That feedback is tremendous. This video would not exist if it wasn't for feedback. That's important. Now, for the adult scout leaders, there actually is a video. It's tips for the new scoutmaster or assistant scoutmaster. It's right up. So check it out. This is a great video that will give you information about being new and all of the things that are going on that they may have not told you about as a new leader. And it's an excellent video on that. And it's very important information that you can view at your leisure anytime. And that's the important thing about this channel. So definitely check out the video. Hey, before we go any further, I want to make sure that you are invited to come to the live meeting. The live meeting is on the first Sunday of each month at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So please join us. Now, you're going to have to adjust for whatever time zone you're in. But please join us and join in. That's a great way to ask questions, and I'm there to answer them. Also, I want to personally thank all of the patrons on Patreon for their continued financial support. Also, if you would like to become a channel member right here on YouTube, hit the join button and go through that process. It's a great way to help fund what you see here. If you don't want to do a monthly donation, that's fine. We have a thank you button. Just hit the thank you button and make a one-time donation. That is always appreciated. And let's get right back to it. Balancing support and advice. This is something that is critical for the adult leadership to do that balancing act in giving advice so that the scout can gain autonomy. As I specified earlier, we talked a little bit about how when there's a safety issue, how to address it. That is true for any type of management critiques, feedback, commentary. These are things that need to be done without embarrassing the scout, the youth. So absolutely important when we are giving that advice, giving that critique, giving that feedback. We need to make sure that the scout is not singled out, embarrassed, belittled. These are things that would be bullying in many regards. So we need to make sure that we do that appropriately. Now, of course, too deep leadership is always in place when dealing with youth and even adults. It is very important that we keep that buddy system going with too deep leadership as specified in youth protection training. That training is absolutely in that regard. So we make sure that we have another assistant scoutmaster or somebody else that's scout facing that has had all the appropriate training and everything so that they're with you and you can give your feedback and your key critique, advice, that kind of stuff, so that the scout is not embarrassed in front of his peers. We don't want to do that. Embarrassing scouts in that way is not good. And it really hurts the leadership. It doesn't build them up to being an effective leader. To bring them down in front of everybody, that's not good. That's not good. So make sure that there's an appropriate time that you can go aside and talk with the scout. This builds their autonomy. They come back and it's like, well, that's interesting. We didn't think about that. What that youth leader is saying. It's so important. It builds that autonomy. And then pretty soon their confidence is up and they're starting to make the right decisions. They're starting to think through the process. This is a huge thing. Now, transitioning leadership, this comes up with new units where the adults need to go in and start training the youth on what youth-led is. And then stepping back and being, not away, but stepping back and being able to help them go through that process. So that's a transition. If it's a unit that has been adult-led, which is not what a youth group is meant to be, there is a transition process, and that is very similar to a brand new unit where they go through that process and they start getting the youth to actually stepping up and doing that process. It's amazing to witness that change. And I've seen units struggle, 5, 6 youth in the unit, and then they switch over to being youth-led. And before you know it, they're up to 40 youth in that unit within 2 or 3 months. It is fast how you can turn scouting around. It is fast. I've seen it as a commissioner of units. And then when that happens, when they start stepping up and the leadership starts progressing, you have your assistant patrol leader that works with your patrol leader, and the patrol leaders work within the patrol method, and then they move up to an assistant senior patrol leader, and then eventually a senior patrol leader. That's the boss. So that progression, that is something that happens. And when youth see that, when a youth group is youth-led, it's amazing the things they can do. Amazing. So that is that transition. We need to train, teach, mentor, coach, and then move back. Then let them lead. That is the key to good leadership. Respecting youth ownership of their unit. That's important for adults to understand. They need to step back, not away, step back and respect that the youth are running their unit. The senior patrol leader is the boss. One of the big statements that a lot of scoutmasters say is ask your senior patrol leader. That is one of those things. It is so important that the adult leaders within the unit, and this is true for the committee, it's true for any of the backstage stuff that goes on within a unit, and the scout facing part of it, that all needs to work together and be respectful to the ownership of the youth. And that's the key. Especially if they're doing planning or they're coming up with ideas for activities or deciding on whether or not they want to do a camp out, a camporee, or all of them or none of them, or it's their unit. We have to respect their ownership. And we also have to understand that if something goes wrong, that ownership is there too. So it's important that they understand that. And it's so critical to the overall unit that the adults let the youth leadership know If they want to do a certain activity, as long as it's safe, no problem, then they are going to support them. And they are going to mentor them and coach them and help them along the way. That's the key. Now, as a unit commissioner, I have been brought into units, and I look for certain signs of the adults overstepping the authority of the youth leaders. And that's usually where most units are having problems, is understanding when to step back. This is a huge subject, and 3 really big important points. When I see micromanaging from the adults to the youth on every single little thing, it is micromanaging overload. And that makes a lot of youth very upset. And they don't want to be a leader if you're going to critique them on everything, every word, every part of every little thing. It really gets to be a problem. If they're starting to make notes of your critique, there's a problem. There's something more systemic to it. And most of the time, that's because the adult leader can't give ownership to the youth. And that's a huge thing. We have to watch for micromanaging. Another big thing I look for is when the youth go to the adult leadership, the scouters, the scoutmaster people, scout facing, they go to them for every little question. And a lot of scoutmasters want to be helpful. That's kind of in our nature to be helpful. But we need to be able to say, please ask your patrol leader, please ask your senior patrol leader, please, delegate. That is giving that ownership back over to the youth. So that's the important thing. When that doesn't occur, where the tents are set up at a camporee, they go to the scoutmaster, and the scoutmaster tells them it's going to be this way. No. that's a red alert. Okay, we see that as commissioners, we see that, and we want the youth to take charge. We want them to do leadership. That's a big part of scouting. That's a red alert. So that's a warning sign. Another big warning sign, this is huge, is the adult leaders making decisions for the youth. That's not the way it should be. It's very similar to the last one, but when they're not even asked, when it is this way, it's my way, or the highway, that's a problem. We need to make sure that the youth are included with all of those decisions. Now, for instance, I was in a unit that decided in their schedule that they wanted to go skiing, snow skiing. And they had decided in the appropriate time, but they did not have the funds to do that. That was the problem. So the adults just canceled it. And the youth were like, wait a minute, we wanted to do this. And, to have the adults, whether it be committee or scout facing, whatever, to arbitrarily just cancel it without explaining that every scout would have to earn or pay $200-$300 more to their budget, then that's why it was canceled, because of budgetary things. Because the youth could come back and says, well, we're going to do all kinds of fundraisers, and we're going to do these things and be able to fly to a really nice place to ski. These are things that scouts can do. To have adults superseding that is a huge red flag. It's important that there needs to be some kind of communications between the adult leadership, whether it be the scoutmasters, the scouters, the parents, all the adults. It's a youth decision. The adults are there to help them understand that decision and be able to come up with the tools and the ability to do those things. That's the key. It may be too expensive for current budget, but over years you could actually do fundraisers and go to Philmont as a troop. This is something that a lot of units do. And the youth should make that decision. The youth should be supported in that decision. And they should be reminded, hey, we need to get, certain goals set on raising the funds for that big adventure. So these are big things, big things. And we do a lot for our scouts. And being able to just step back and let them lead, it's magical. When it happens, it's a beautiful thing. When they can stand up and be a leader, wow, that's something. So you'd have to have that ability to step back, take that moment, critique in your head, not verbally, but really work these skills. These are fantastic things that we do in scouting. And one of those big things is patrol method. Okay? If you forgot, patrol method. All right, there's a video on that. Definitely check that out. It's how scouting works. It's what it's meant to do and how it creates incredible leaders. It's so important. And you know this. So keep up that good hard work. And I'll tell you what, there's so many things going on. And if you'd like more information about Patrol Leader, check it out. But I'll tell you, thank you so much, and I'll see you on the trail.